Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I have learned as I have grown into the person that I am today. And I brought 4 meditation books with me today. This one, my favorite, that's falling apart. And I thought we would just go in here and read a few. So you ready? Are you sure? Okay. Let's go into the Daily Book of Positive Quotations by Linda Picone. May 15th. Where are we at? May 15th. May 15th, doing for others. There is nothing to make you like other human beings so much as doing things for them. Zora Neale Hurston. We like ourselves better when we help others, but the astonishing thing is that we also tend to like others better. It is something of a gift when people allow us to help them. We appreciate the givers of this gift. I will help others and realize that they are giving me a gift that I welcome. I love this meditation. I love the idea of service. One of the things I say every night in my vlog at the end is I always say, practice random acts of kindness and don't tell anyone, because that was a lesson that we learned in the don't sweat the small stuff, But I love the whole idea of service and just of giving. And I think, sometimes when we have to help other people that we don't necessarily like, or there are things about them, character defects, whatever about them that are kind of like, it makes us see them as human beings. It makes us see their maybe vulnerable side, their raw side. I think the other thing in helping others is allowing people to help us as well. And I think that in life, many of us aren't willing to allow others to help us, that we see, that as a prideful thing to ask for help, or, to allow other people to help us. I have many, many friends of mine, that refuse to ask for help in situations. And I'm like, asking for help is not a sign of weakness. In fact, I think asking for help is a sign of strength. To say, I don't know how to do this, will you help me? Or will you teach me? Or, hey, I need help moving, or whatever. Now, there are those people out there, I think we all know them, that ask and ask and ask and ask and and that's when you might have to set some boundaries. Don't you have anybody else that could probably help you with these things, But I think, to be somebody that is willing to ask for help is a huge part of this as well, because then you have to be vulnerable in that moment. You have to allow people to see your vulnerability. I don't know, you just ask yourself, in many ways, are you a giver or are you a taker in this world? And I think most of us are one or the other, or a little bit of both. I think I'm a little bit of both, depending on the situation, that it really depends on, in that situation, is it in that moment, a situation where I'm able to be there for somebody? When my aunt passed away, it was my moment to be a giver for my cousin. That moment wasn't necessarily about me. It was about my cousin. It was my job to suit up and show up, and likewise, and being a taker sometimes in the moment when my mom passed away, that was my moment to allow others to take care of me. And we have to be able to do that. We have to be able to allow others to help us. And I know there are a lot of people out there that are like, no, I'm just going to do this on my own. I'm going to figure it out on your own. And the other thing I have learned in life too is that, the inability to ask for help really becomes a major weakness. Because sometimes if you would call up somebody that knows exactly what they're doing and ask them how to do it quicker, they can do it for you a lot quicker than you would have ever known on yourself. So you call up somebody and say, oh, I know this person knows what they're talking about, so I'm going to call them up and ask them, instead of, being like, I can't figure this out on my own. You know what I mean? And then just trying to do it on your own, and then you mess up, and then you have to clean up your mess. Just, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's a lot easier to ask for help. But I love this idea, and I love the idea of service, I've been taught in sobriety that the greatest way of recovery as well, the greatest way for me to get out of myself is to do service for others. And, and that can be as simple as just calling up somebody and saying, hey, how are you doing? Whatever. I remember we were into a week into this being lockdown thing, and this friend of mine in sobriety that I hadn't talked to in months, right? I got a random text from him one afternoon, and he was like, hey, how are you and Alex doing? And I was like, we're doing okay. It was so nice, and it kind of set the mood, or paved the road, I guess, for me going forward in reaching out to people that were in a similar situation, that I hadn't thought of for a while. I actually got another message, it was the next day, from a friend of ours that lives in California, and it was just so random that she sent this text, and it was so nice. I was like, That's so, like, to know that you're thought of, I think is such a great thing. And that's a little bit of service. We think that stuff doesn't mean anything, right? But it really, really does. Just to notice somebody's existence, just to say hi, just to say, hey, how are you doing? To show interest in somebody else's life. You don't know what that person is going through in that day. You don't know how lonely that person is, that maybe that person hasn't had anybody say to them in a long time, how are you doing? Like, what's your day like? Like, hey, anything new going on, And I think that's another way to get out of ourselves. I think one of the things, too, that I've really tried to learn is that I'm such a talker, and I talk over people, and I interrupt people, and I don't even realize I'm doing it, honestly, 90% of the time. But I've really tried to shut my mouth and just listen, when people are telling me, like, I'll say, like, oh, how was your day? And then they'll go, blah, 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 and then I'll want to interrupt them. But just to sit and listen, and what it's taught me is that I've really gotten to know people a lot better. And it's also taught me that what I have to say is not necessarily the most important thing in the room, not that I ever thought that was, but isn't that a sign of ego, arrogance, and pride, and that's just something I've done ever since I was a kid. But I've really been working on that the last couple years, because I think that's another way of service, is to allow people to have their say, and have their moment. There's so many ways that we can help people, even just by like saying hi to our neighbors, or like pushing up our neighbor's trash can, which I was going to do last night and I didn't do, so I'm telling on myself. But yeah, there's so many ways that we can be of service to others, and I think that's a great meditation. All right, I'm going to go into, since it's getting later, let's go into Nightlight by Amy Dean, a book of nighttime meditations. Some of these meditations in this book, I love this book, but sometimes, I love it for me, but sometimes the meditations on here are so specific to recovery and sobriety that it's really hard to kind of like, I try to take the sobriety and the recovery, if you haven't figured this out after months of watching my channel, I try to take the sobriety and the recovery kind of messages in these meditations and make them applicable to everybody. Which, I think the 12 steps and sobriety life can be applicable to everybody, May 15th. We owe to our first journeys the discovery, excuse me, May 15th. We owe to our first journeys the discovery that place is nothing. At home, I dream that at Naples, at Rome, I can be intoxicated with beauty and lose my sadness. I pack my trunk, embrace my friends, embark on the sea, and at last wake up in Naples. And there beside me is the stern fact, the sad self, unrelenting, identical fact that I fled from. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Many times we may not like what we are thinking or feeling, or the way we are acting. We may try to run away, hoping a geographical move or a new job or a new set of friends will make being with ourselves more bearable. Yet no matter how we change our environment or lifestyle, those changes will not change us. We can become more bearable by changing from within. If we don't like the way we think, perhaps we can take 1 minute tonight and think positive thoughts. If we don't like the way we act, we can begin changing our behaviors. By changing from within, we will deal with the reasons why we want to run from ourselves. We will change the person we are running from. I can stop running and start looking at myself. How can I make myself more likable to me? I think it's such a great message, especially in periods of my life when I've gone through great change, before I met Alex, like I had gotten out of a long-term relationship, I left a long-term career, my mother passed away, and that whole summer, basically, I just kind of ran, And one of my dear friends at the time lived in Colorado. He still lives in Colorado. And I would go out there and visit him literally like every 2 weeks. I would fly out there for like 4 or 5 days. And I was out there like that whole summer, And I look back on that, and although I had a great time out there, I was really running. Like, I just didn't want to be here in Indianapolis, I was seeking my purpose. I didn't know where I was supposed to be. I felt completely lost. And I think, we don't have to necessarily geographically run, We can run by just really not wanting to deal with things at hand. And I think that many of us do that. I still do that to this day, So then I have to kind of like sit in a space and like do some inventory and evaluation and look at, okay, what's really going on with you right now? Like why are you wanting to run from this? And it can be simple things too. It doesn't have to be big things. It could be simple things. I think, in terms of what we are all going through right now, I think this, I was talking to my friend Tanya, we were talking about traveling and how like all of us want to travel right now, we don't want to because it's not necessarily safe, but I think that there's a yearning in a lot of us that we want to like get out, right? And I was talking to her and I said, I think part of the issue is that we can't go, It's like wanting a toy that you can't afford, or, wanting, like going, like the kid in the candy store kind of thing, It's like we can't travel anywhere, so therefore we want to travel more, And then it's like, so what is really going on? Is it the fear and the anxiety of what we're going through in the world right now and being at home and not being able to go anywhere? Or is that what's really going on that we're running from? What is it that you're really running from? Like, I've talked about this on my vlog a lot. I, every single night, am having the most vivid dreams. My stomach has been like chewed up for like the last 2 or 3 weeks. And, somebody commented on my vlog and they said it's interesting because this is the same time that, like the same months that my mother was in the hospital in a coma before she passed away. Maybe it's bringing up some old anxieties. I think that is true, but I also think that like every bit of change that happens with the reopening or the going back out or whatever, I think it brings all that back up to me again, because like at the beginning, that's how I felt when they were like, okay, we're gonna be at home. I was like, ooh, like I was tense, And I'm somebody that like whenever I have like anxiety, it like affects my stomach. And, like Alex went back and started work. And I think like just him being gone during the day when I was used to him being here all the time. And then like him being out there in the world and things like that. I think there's a lot of subconscious fear associated with that maybe I don't even identify. Because I just get up and I walk around the house. I'm just like, what's going on? Like nothing's changed. It's just here. And I have to say, like I went out today and the first time in 60 days, I got Starbucks because Indianapolis opened. Our stay-at-home order closed down today. I could have gone to fast food or drive-through for a long time. But this was the first time I went to Starbucks today. And I drove out and just knowing that the stay-at-home order like was put down today in Indianapolis, this was the first day, I could not believe how busy it was out. Like there were people everywhere. I was just kind of astonished, So I like literally went through Starbucks and drove right home. Anyway, and it's gonna take some time for me to get a little bit more comfortable with it. And everybody has to do things their own way, but that's for me, And then I have to look at, well, like, am I running from fear about facing like what's really going on in the world? Then maybe what I need to do is, address those fears, feel better prepared, write them down, inventory them, journal them, and say like, this is how I'm feeling right now, blah, 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 I think that's how we get through things, is by kind of sometimes facing them head on and addressing them and looking at that and saying, okay, well, here's my fear with the situation of the world right now, and maybe, slowly some of those anxieties will go away. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I hope you're staying safe and healthy and sane, and I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.